quickly run through their bios, and then I'm going to invite them one by one to come up and speak about their career experiences to date. So first up, Dr. Carmen Letton is the Head of Resource Development and Planning and Life of Asset Planning at Anglo American. She's had general management experience across both open cut and underground mining, and she's also got a PhD in mineral economics. Next, we have Lydia Gentle. Lydia is the Asset Engineering Manager at BHP. She's a chartered civil and structural engineer with experience in engineering, mining, and construction. And her strategic and leadership skills and contribution to the engineering profession are recognised through her engineering executive status with Engineers Australia, and she's also received a Medal of the Order of Australia for her contributions to the engineering sector. Amazing. And last but not least, we've got Jedi Malone, who is the Planning Manager at South 32 Cannington. Jedi has a deep experience across multiple commodities and companies in Australia as well, with a geotechnical background, and currently she's acting as mine manager. She's passionate about promoting learning and leading teams, and she was actually a finalist for earlier this year, our YMark QRC Resources Awards for gender diversity through some of the programs she's been doing at Cannington. So really keen to hear from our speakers, and first up, Carmen, can I call upon you to give us a little bit about your background and your experiences?
Thank you, Holstein, and hello everybody that's on the call, and thank you for dialing in at odd hours, and hello again to some of the faces that I haven't seen for a long time. Welcome to today's session, and thank you so much for allowing me to speak, and I hope that there'll be something that you can take away from the time that I spend talking to you. And I know that I have 5 to 7 minutes, and I'm going to just make sure I don't blow that. Okay, so today we're here talking about expectations of females in technical leadership roles. I'm going to start a little bit more generically than that and circle back to the females part of it. Where I want to start is with our foundations, and I'm going to assume that everyone on the call is aspiring to either technical leadership or leadership somewhere in our industries or your industries, and I think there's a couple of elements to reflect on here, and one is that there's leadership being the leader, the top dog, and there's leadership being part of a team where you really have an impact and can amplify the outcomes of that team. I hope that you'll recognise as I speak that I'm talking about both of those. So the first thing I want to talk about is your foundations, and what I found is that diversity and having a really well-grounded or well-rounded background and experience base is a great lever for acceptance into leadership roles and for leading as part of a team. So what I'm talking about there is having open pit and underground experience if you're in the mining industry, of course, working across all of the horizons within the mining industry, open pit, short-term, mid-term, long-term strategy, all of those horizons, potentially even working in disciplines or fields that are not the discipline that your original training is in. I'm talking about having both technical and operational experience. I think the richest of technical leaders come from an environment where they've worked for some time in operations. I think working across all of the different levels of asset development, or different stages of asset development is a better word. So what I'm talking about there is studies, discovery, studies and discovery phase, construction and commissioning phase, execution and operation phases, business improvement and operational excellence phases, and closure phases for that matter. And I think that the experience in that space is all about leaving the jersey in a better place, and I'm going to talk a bit more about the jersey. I think that having multi-commodity experience, working on small, medium and large size mines or assets, having a multidiscipline and cross-functional integration approach to the work that you do, and working in the international and the domestic environment are all big foundation levers. Now, if you can manage to get a spot of experience in each one of those buckets, I think that you've got a winning recipe for the next stages of leadership in your career. The next thing I want to talk about is the transition from technical professional to technical leader and manager. And the first thing I'd like to talk about is leadership. And leadership is the one that I think is the secret sauce. The first thing I'd like to just offer to the discussion is leading with love is a great thing, and it's something that I'll circle back to when we talk about the female element, because I think it is part of our particular secret sauce. So leading with love, admiring and inspiring and building confidence in your team. For your team are your superpower, and you need to, as a leader, be bold and encourage them to be bold. And that's the special place where great things happen. I think in the leadership space, there's a big piece about creating vision and purpose for your team, connecting and energizing and motivating them, staying at the forefront of that industry or that piece that you are leading. So innovating all the time, innovating and stretching to be right at the forefront of all of the offerings that are available to you. And then I think big and then think even bigger. This is all about dreaming more, learning more, doing more, and then you'll become more. And so I think that leadership space, particularly for engineers, for which I am one, I've had to really put positive and forceful energy behind developing myself, because I am quite an analytical and data-based and fact-based thinker and individual. And to really get the best out of people and get the best out of your team, there's a big element of being a superpower in all of those areas. Let's talk a bit about management now. Management's something quite different. It's about creating clarity, focus and alignment, making decisions, and don't be afraid to be wrong, because just remember, you've got reverse gear and you can quickly back up and take a better route if being wrong is, if you do make a decision that's not quite the right one. I think delegation and empowerment is a great leadership, a great management trait, and having the work clearly identified and who's doing what, and having that accountability cascaded through your team. What, when, who, and how is also important for a manager. And can I just say, a little bit less focus on the how, because connect it back to your leadership style, where you want to encourage your team to be bold and to step out with purpose and great vision. So let them figure out the how, and don't make decisions for them that they could make themselves, but rather move them along with their own little pool of courage and confidence behind them. I think on the management front as well, having the right people in your team and making sure that they are your people. They are aligned with your thinking and focused and have great clarity on where you are headed. That's a really big one for females in technical leadership as well, I believe. And the final piece around management is to just say what you will do and when you'll do it by, and then deliver it. I think that there's a lot to be said for that. I'm at 7 minutes now, Holstein. Do you want me to close out now and move on to the next person so we don't run over? Yeah?
Thank you, Carmen. No, thank you very much. I'm sure we'll hear lots more from you in the group discussion, but yes, okay. Let's invite Lydia now to share yours. And Lydia is very interested to hear how you came into mining from a different discipline.
Excellent. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for having me. And Carmen, thank you so much for those tips. I was, really enjoyed hearing them. Even I learned something from that. For me, when I reflect on my career, I never started out, even when I was at school, thinking I was going to end up in mining. I grew up in a very small country town. My parents were only able to go to school to grade 5. So it was really my maths teacher there encouraged me to study engineering. So I took that on, not realising it was male-dominated until I think I walked into my first maths lecture at university and realised I was probably only one of 2 women in a room of about 100. So that was my introduction to a very male-dominated career. And it followed through from that. So when I graduated from university, I started working for GHD. I actually started doing design of mining infrastructure, transfer towers and conveyors and port infrastructure. So that was great. But then, wanting something different, I actually worked overseas for a few years. And I think that was really the start of my leadership journey, because I was only a couple of years out of uni, and then I got a job as a senior structural engineer in London. And I remember having to review some drawings. And not only do the British use a different set of standards, I was told very clearly, you've been employed as a senior engineer, we expect you to act as one. So here I was trying to work through all these drawings, spending a lot of late nights, getting myself up to speed of different standards to what I'd been taught throughout my university degree. But that was a great experience. It was really that sink or swim moment. And I think we all have those defining moments in our career where we get those huge challenges. And I think that is what makes up. We either step up to the challenge, or sometimes we succumb and just say it's too hard. So it's really always been up for that challenge. And then when I came back to Australia, I worked in oil and gas and then got into mining. And it's been such an amazing career journey for me. As Holstein said, I have been awarded an Order of Australia medal. And I think that it probably has 2 parts to it. One, because I'm incredibly passionate about engineering and I do try to, really improve the sector, both from a mining and STEM perspective. But also because in my career, I challenged absolutely everything. Every time I took on a new project, if I could see a better way of doing it, either a way to make it safer or reduce costs, I always did that. I remember once I wanted to ground a barge in the middle of the Pacific Ocean to do some piling from, and everyone told me that was absolutely impossible. I said, no, I'm pretty sure this is the best way to do it. And we did it. We were incredibly successful. So I've absolutely, loved my career. And so when I think about leadership, though, because not it's really only been in the recent years where I've had a team, reporting through me that I've had to lead and manage. But thinking back to me, my past, like leadership is really influence. So everyone at every stage of their career has the ability to influence others. Because whenever your life connects with another person's, that's really when you can exert that influence. And I believe that nothing can stop a person with the right attitude from achieving their goals. So when I think about in mining, what characteristics do we need to be a future leader? Looking at where we are with the purpose of change, we're seeing so much automation and new technologies come. I think to be successful as a leader, you really need to have creativity and innovation, being able to adapt to change, and really then the ability to communicate that vision that you have. And also bearing in mind, if you're going to do a task, do it well. This is probably my philosophy that I use all the way from my 5-year-old when he needs to do his homework to my team. Whenever I'm presented with a piece of work, I always ask, is this your best work? And if it's not, then why submit something? Always do the best in everything that you can do. And from that, because we are in mining, and especially being women in mining, we are still in a very male-dominated sector. You need to have courage. And for me, courage is like a muscle. It needs to be exercised daily. That way it will grow. And you need to have that courage to challenge the status quo, to always look for better ways of doing things and to really take on one fearless choice at a time or one courageous action. So these are the choices and decisions and actions that will really transform, your landscape. And it's about turning that risk into reward and fear into determination. But always come from that point that anything is possible. And that's one of the key things I've taken throughout my whole career, is believing in yourself, commit to it, and know that anything is possible. So probably one of my favourite sayings that I will end with is that your actions and intentions are what will make you a great leader. If your actions inspire others to learn more and do more and become more, then you are already a leader. That was it for me. I think I tried to stick to my 5 minutes.
Brilliant. Thank you. That was a great quote. Do you know where that quote is from by any chance, Lydia? Or was it one of those pieces of wisdom that just kind of gets...
I could find out. I can't remember it off the top of my head, to be honest.
We can attribute it to you for the time being.
Sounds good.
Okay, thank you so much. And finally, Jedi, please take the stage, the virtual stage.
Thanks very much. Thanks, Lydia and Carmen. I certainly jotted down a couple of ideas out of those comments. For me, I've had the opportunity to work at a number of different sites in some of those areas that Carmen talked about. So in open pit, in cave mining, and in open stoping closure. And out of each of those experiences, I've learnt a lot. And I think that is one of the key aspects of being a successful technical leader, is that curiosity and continuing to learn and continuing to seek new information. For me, one of the main skills, or one of the key skills I think that I've learnt through my career, is actually about how you communicate risk. The audiences that we're communicating to are not necessarily technical, or if they are, they might be from a different discipline. So when I look at EXCO and the general managers within the South 32 group, we've kind of 4 of the 10 lead team have an engineering and science background, and the other 3 have commercial and humanities type degrees. So for me, when we're communicating risk, particularly in that technical sense, it can be material safety risk, but it can also be production and other kind of business risks. So the ability to be able to distill what is really important and communicate that information and make sure that it's not only heard but understood is one of the really key skills. And I think that applies that regardless of what level of an organisation or what role that you actually are within. If you're a new graduate and you see something that is unsafe, it's how do you communicate that and have your message heard. But it is a skill, and it's a skill that needs to continue to be practiced. One of the things that I've learnt as a technical person, there's a tendency to want to present information in a chronological order about the process that you took that really highlights all of the fantastic and detailed work that you did, all those great analytics. Whereas your audience probably wants to know, what is the answer, what is the risk, what is the implication, and then what are we going to do about it? So by actually being thoughtful about how you present information and the information that your audience want to hear, you'll actually be far more effective. And for me, being a technical leader that is your role within the organisation, which is a great role because it's a central kind of hub of information, and I'm excited about being in that technical aspect of it. I think that I more naturally find that leadership skills and people and that interaction comes more naturally. But what that's meant is that through my career, I've been very mindful to make sure that I have well-developed technical skills and I genuinely understand the technical aspects and have those skills. And a lot of that comes through coaching. So one of the things I set up early in my career was Technical Hour. I had a very good technical manager who had some excellent skills, and I set up Technical Hour once a month, and we would go through different topics so that I had confidence in those technical skills. So for me, it's actually around embracing the areas that I feel uncomfortable with, because then they actually become your real strengths. And I think that this probably overlays quite nicely with what Carmen and Lydia are both saying. It is about being curious. It's about that desire to continue to learn. You can learn in different ways, be it through experience, be it through reading, be it through talking with people, be it through attempting tasks and activities that may go well or may not, and just that continual learning. And so I think that then encourages others around you to want to be better. The second aspect for me is actually around creating a secure environment for the technical teams that we work with. So that's that psychological safety, but it's also about allowing people to try different things, to take risks within a safe space, both from an implications for other people's physical safety, but also within things don't always go well. Sometimes we need to fail to learn. So creating that safety within systems and processes and allowing people to bring their creativity to work. People don't choose to be engineers to do the same things over and over again. And scientists, it's about how do I bring my creativity? What are different ways to achieve a good outcome? And it is around that side of it. So for me, there's two aspects that are really key around technical leadership, and it's around that safe environment and allowing people to try different things, as well as really honing and enhancing and understanding your role in communicating technical risk and opportunity. That was it for me.
Fantastic, Jenna. Thank you. Great tips there. Now, can I ask Carmen and Lydia, can you put your videos back on? I think we can kick off into the Q&A session. I've got a couple of questions here noted down to kick off the discussion, but I see there's a couple coming through in the chat already. So, actually, there's one from you, Carmen.
That's actually from the small team that's in the room here with me in Brisbane. It's for Jedi.
Yeah, fantastic. Jedi, can you kick off then? So the question from the team is, what barriers have you experienced being a female leader in a predominantly male team?
I think that I've had two fantastic bosses in my career, being Rob Jackson, who's my most recent boss and who was Diversity Inclusion Champion Award winner last year, and a boss early in my career. And what they both did was showed confidence and allowed me space to do my job, but also to expand and to challenge and to ask for new opportunities, and just really supported that, which means that the flip side of that for me has always been around being kind of, this is your job, and sticking within that role. So I think it is that continuing to take that, to show that courage and continuing to say, here's an opportunity, allow me to do it, rather than saying, well, what have you got for me? So for me, it has been around one of the barriers. It's been around trying to contain me within roles quite specifically. It's around that is your job and that's what you need to do and deliver on that. So, or just through, and potentially a lot of them are self-imposed, and some of them are definitely culturally and organisationally imposed around belief in what you can do, and just that opportunity to show that and to do that. And I think there's certainly been times during my career, and a lot has changed in the last 15 years around, I think, my expectations of what my career would look like, but also whatever the industry around me. But I certainly was at a certain level in organisations for a number of years, and trying to break through that barrier, be it between senior and superintendent and manager, general manager. I think that the opportunity for someone to take a chance on you at that different level has probably been one of the biggest barriers for me. And I think that's probably links quite closely back to develop those communication skills, keep asking for the challenges, keep delivering high quality work, and reaching out to people and making sure that you have advocates within organisations who will speak for you in forums where you aren't. It's probably been some of the things that I perhaps have learnt slowly, but have helped to overcome some of those barriers.
Fantastic. That leads on very well to the topic of mentorship and sponsorship. So Lydia, I might throw to you. In your experience, what is the role of being a mentor and also the role of being a mentee? Have you got any experiences to share about role models and such?
Great question. For me, I think sometimes we go into these mentorship situations and we don't really have any structure put behind it. So there's a lot you can get out of a mentorship relationship as long as you do have that structure. Like, it is great to sit down, with someone on a monthly basis and just have a bit of a general chat. But for me, it's really understanding what some of your strengths and weaknesses are if you're the mentee, and then having that person at that more senior level that can give you some guidance and advice on, really how to shape those key skills, so how to play to your strengths, and then also how to, develop and improve, maybe some of those weaknesses. It's really about understanding more holistically what you want out of your career, both from a professional and personal side, and really how they come together to then, look for those career paths that suit your goals. And then as the mentor, it's really important not to just give all the answers, because so often, especially if you've been around for, a bit and you're confident, it's about really having those open questions, trying to reflect any question that you get asked back with an open question to almost let your mentee solve for it themselves. And I've been in so many situations where I'm actually surprised by my mentee's answer, and they've got such phenomenal insights that I think I sometimes learn more as a mentor, because there's so many amazing women out there. But it's really important to then foster that connection. And if you then move through, that mentorship, probably once those formal arrangements have taken place, it's still really important to keep those connections, keep that network. You'll never know when you'll come across someone again. So it's really, it really ties on to what you said, Jetta. It's having those people that will, speak on your behalf and are there to support and guide you, and just knowing that there is a great wider network of people out there for you.
Brilliant.
Hope that answered.
Definitely. I think the role model and mentorship question is very difficult in the sense that women are always tapped on the shoulder to mentor other women, and we need to be able to support each other in the best way. Carmen, I've got there's quite a few themes coming through here about the foundations that you spoke about. Having all the experience with short, mid-term planning, all the time horizons, open cut and underground. I suppose. How do you measure the success of females in aspiring to those technician leadership roles? When do you know that you're ready to step up into those roles, or can you spend too long just preparing your foundations?
Okay, so I'd be happy to talk to that for a bit. The thing that I think is incredibly important is that you are always ready for opportunity to knock on your door, that you're always ready and agile to adapt in order to take advantage of experiential diversity, or business diversity, or commodity diversity, or any diversity that's put in front of you, in fact. And when do you know that it's the right time? I think there's two things here. One is knowing it's the right time, and I would suggest that the right time is when you feel the urge to have your next promotion, or when you stop learning, or when you've had enough and the creative juices have been sucked out of you for a certain role. And I think, there's lots of flexibility around that. Put it this way, you'll either feel the urge yourself, or someone will tap you on the shoulder and say, what about this? And I don't think there are any rules. How's that?
Sounds good. It's definitely something that the three of you are already showing such a diverse paths to the kind of roles that you've been speaking about. And just a quick follow-up, Carmen, you've worked in a number of different places internationally. Which country do you think is leading the way in terms of inclusion?
Okay, all right. I'm going to answer it a little bit differently. I'll tell you which country, which region I think is leading, and I'll say that it's in all likelihood Canada or Northern European countries, Scandinavia, etc. However, I do want to say that I don't think it's really about which country it is or which region. I think it's much more about which people. And I emphasised in my discussion this thing, which is get the right people around you and make sure they're your people, your kind of people, people that inspire you and that you inspire, people that you can get a real drumbeat working with, and people that you can feed off. For I firmly believe, firmly, and I see it every day with my own fabulous team, that the whole is greater than the sum of the parts.
Fantastic insights. Well, I think definitely with YMARC and the various groups that are around Australia, we are definitely helping people find those people and find that tribe. Now moving on to a question to the panel in general. What Jed already spoken to this a little bit, but just in a more general case. What are some challenges when dealing with other leaders of different backgrounds, and what are some tips on how to communicate with those interdisciplinary discussions?
Lydia, do you want to pick this one up?
Oh, sure. I wasn't sure if it was going to someone. Sorry. Yes, I absolutely love having a diverse team. So I've got a team of probably about 90 people that report through to me, and I say we've got a whole range of countries, religions, ethnicities, social orientations. It's just fabulous. And for me, if you're going to look at diversity, you need to have inclusion. We focus a lot on diversity, but it's really about knowing that people can come to work and they can be their whole selves. They can bring their true selves to work, because I think that's really what makes people happy. And then if people are happy, they're more productive. So how to foster some of this inclusion? We do run a few little culture sessions in my team, and it's just being mindful that people will perceive different situations differently. So we're really open about, the language that we use, what could be considered, okay in one culture isn't okay in another. So just bringing those examples to the forefront. And then we celebrate our differences. So quite often, even though we're all working virtually at the moment, we'll still have a lunch where someone will bring, a local cuisine and talk about it. So it's really about, inspiring that or having that inclusive environment, which helps with, I guess, having a diverse team.
Wonderful. And the flip side of that then is how do you then balance the professional responsibilities and personal responsibilities, given that we're all currently dialing in from home and remote locations? What are some challenges in this current space? Jada, maybe I'll go to you for this one.
I think that being a site-based role that I'm in, just kind of switched over from the mine technical services manager role to the manager of mining role. With the technical services group, one of the challenges was that a whole lot of our processes quite necessarily say that we go down and we actually have a look at things underground and do verification type work. So I think that one of the things that we did early was just to reshape what we do as site tasks and what we do as home-based tasks. But it's also about that respect and understanding that somebody else is picking up a portion of your work and showing some gratitude for that, as well as that communication. But it's also about establishing how we're going to get in contact with people, because we're so used to just walking to someone's desk and having those conversations. And so technology's been a part of that, but as technical professionals, a lot of the team are on their computers and are very good in that space anyway. So it's actually just been around agreeing as a team how we are going to divide tasks, but also being thankful and saying, well, working at home is not always the whole 100% great. Working on site's not 100% great. It's not the grass is greener on the other side. It's actually about understanding and respecting and just voicing that there's benefits and deficits from both. And I think that's been really helpful. And we've really got into our groove over the last, after that first kind of 3 or 4 bumpy weeks, as we just started to work out how to communicate. And so from that perspective, it's been going really well. I think that for the mine ops team, it's been more challenging because there's a lot more face-to-face with the crews. And so we've had to be a little bit creative in how we've done that, and just teaching a different group of people, just teaching them how to be a lot more confident with technology. So the different groups and the different skills have adapted in different ways. But a lot of it's just been about voicing the frustrations, because somebody will find a solution, or even if it's just that actually that's how everyone's feeling. So I think that's been a couple of the really key points for us around how we just change the way we work.
Definitely. And building on that a bit, we've got a couple of questions coming through about returning to work. So something that I'm sure a lot of women are facing as they're building those leadership capabilities, taking some time off to be with family or other responsibilities. Can perhaps Carmen, can you share any experiences, personal or from your team, regards to returning to work and juggling that leadership aspect?
Okay, I'd love to. First and foremost, I'd just like to mention that there's some really current and really excellent articles that are available from the Harvard Business School and the Muse around returning to work, and they are freely available. So if you just jump online and see if you can seek those out. If you can't find them, just drop me an email and I'll send you some links. But let me just talk a little bit about my experience, because in the earlier part of my career, I was just starting to sort of gallop along and decided I would have children. And I had 2 children, and I had quite short maternity leaves with both of them, and my husband was a home dad, so we had some special circumstances. And now my children are in their 20s, and my husband's just been made redundant, although received no package from them. But one of the things that I think has been really incredibly good for me was to talk openly about the things that I was afraid of. You know, I was terrified. I remember the last day going home, and I knew that I wouldn't be coming back to work because my company had a policy that 1 week before your due date, you must go on maternity leave. And I've got tears rolling down my face on the Friday, which was 1 week before my due date. And I had my baby that night. But as I left work that day, I spoke with the general manager, I spoke with the superintendent that I worked for and the manager of technical services, and said, you know, don't forget about me, because I'm going to come back. And during the time that I was on maternity leave, I had a couple of conversations, one with the GM, a couple of discussions with the manager and the superintendent that I worked for. They sometimes would throw me a bone and say, here, just have a look at this for us, will you? Just so that I kept alive and in contact and connected. Incidentally, today, I have one of my magnificent principal mining engineers on maternity leave, and we spoke today about what she's doing and what we're doing at work. So I think that if you've been out of work for a while and you haven't kept your connections, or you've taken a new field, which I suggest that question asker has done, then perhaps have a look at some of the return to work insights from Harvard Business School and the Muse. And if you're just about to have a break from work, make sure you stay in some way connected with the people that you want to return to, and have a plan for that.
Definitely, thank you. And I see you, Caroline's put that link in the chat, so everyone please check out those resources. Definitely a stay in touch plan is something that I've seen working really well. And again, in today's world, we can see that those channels are open, so there's no excuses really not to stay in touch with people who are not there right in front of you. So just having a look through, I don't think we're going to have time to answer all the questions this afternoon in this session, but what we might do is we can take a snapshot of these questions and perhaps post some of the answers on our LinkedIn group or some of our other channels, because I'm sure this conversation will continue well beyond this afternoon session. But I'll look through and let's see what's a good one that we can move on to. All right, seems like there's quite a big theme still about our field being very male dominated, and Lydia, maybe I'll throw it to you for this one. So what is it about technology that you think keeps women from pursuing these fields and pursuing a leadership role?
I personally think it has to do with our schools, because we don't often reflect, or we don't even have an engineering subject that I'm aware of. And you know, when you think of an engineer, you often just think of the hard hat person in construction. It's not really sold that, you know, engineers are out there designing everything from our, you know, space shuttles to our mining infrastructure to our mobile phones to even a teacup. So for me personally, if it wasn't for my maths teacher, I would not have become an engineer. So it's so important that our teachers and our guidance counsellors really understand what engineers do, and really what anyone in, you know, the STEM careers do. And this is a challenge that I put also to my team, is that, you know, get in touch with your schools. There's like STEM Professionals in Schools program with the CSIRO, which is fabulous. And you can go along to Science Week and you get to, I went to one recently and I got to eat, I think it was moon ice cream, which was dehydrated ice cream, and it was amazing. So it's really just about being more visible, you know, in the communities. It's, you know, being willing to be out there. It's really hard, you know, for young girls to aspire to be something that they cannot see. So I think it's the more that we can all take it upon ourselves to be those visible role models in our industry, I think the more that we will see our industry changing from being male dominated to being, you know, more equal.
Most definitely, there is definitely evidence out there to show that young women need to see those female role models, like all of you here today, to know that it is a possible path for them as well. Again, flipping that around just slightly, you know, this information about the pipeline theory, we are seeing increasing numbers of female graduates, female studying those vocational roles, but there still is that glass ceiling to break through to those leadership levels. So I guess turning to a potentially a more personal subject, but maybe I'll go around and ask each of you, has there been a time where you've encountered different expectations placed on you because you're a female leader as opposed to a male leader? Carmen, you're smiling, so I'm going to call on you first.
Yes, from time to time. Look, I have really preferred to not focus on that, and let me give you a few examples. And well, first of all, I've preferred not to focus on it because it's highly confrontational and it's highly adversary, and it's a bit of biffo to call out that whole thing, which is you're treating me differently because I'm a girl. So here's the behaviours that I embrace, right? Here's the behaviours. I don't walk into a meeting room ever and think, I'm female and they're all male, which invariably most of the times they are, and so there's something going on here and I'm different. I go in there because I have a job to do and I can make a valid and very valuable contribution. And I find that within moments, most of the people around the table are thinking about the work and thinking about the job to be done and working from that perspective. I think as well that I've chosen carefully where I go, and I've achieved the roles, or I've moved into the roles that I've moved into on merit, and I've earned my seat there, and I believe in myself and I back myself with that knowledge. So yes, from time to time I do get treated differently. Sometimes I'm going to say to you that I've been able to use it as a winner, right? I think that I'm highly engaging in a different sort of way, and people who embrace diversity are invariably highly engaged by me in the room when they're used to just sitting around a table with all men, right? And that's, there's got to be some pluses, so embrace them. What about you, Jedi? Have you got something to say on this topic?
Yeah, I do. So I did my underground shift bossing time on the west coast of Tasmania, the best part of 15 years ago. And you know what? If the crew had been cherubs, I would have learnt nothing. It was probably not the most joyful experience of my career, but it was certainly a time when I learnt a lot. And just by doing the things that Carmen has kind of said, you're there to perform a role, you're there to do a job, and you have a contribution to make. By focusing on that, you tend to just get past all that nonsense that is there those first handful of weeks. And the ones that want to get on board will get on board. The ones who want to resist, well, you know what, they're probably going to resist everyone, and it's not necessarily about you. So for me, I actually look back on that time now, and I did even at the time, recognising that the challenges in it were gifts, and what I learned from that around a whole range of aspects, about mining, about people, about safety, about every element. It was a really ultimately valuable experience. And I agree. I think I don't dwell on it too much. It was probably a recognition for me when I first started here at Cannington that I looked around, and for the first time in many years, I felt slightly uncomfortable. It's because there was a percentage of women there, and I didn't realise I'd become so conditioned and accustomed to being in that environment where I'm the only woman, because I have just stopped noticing, because it's about what is the role that you're there to perform.
Can I just add one thing, please, Holstein? I'd just like to add one thing. I think there is a big difference between being treated differently, perhaps because you're female or different, and discrimination that is objectionable and oppressive and awful. I will happily call out and go into bat if the latter is occurring. It's the former that I think is a much more sort of flexible environment.
Yeah, great comment, Carmen. To be treated differently because you're different is one thing, but when it crosses that line, it's absolutely a different matter.
Lydia, do you have anything to add to this point?
I think is recognise that you are different. So for me, I always think that to be in my role, I always strive to bring grit and grace. So grit because, yes, as a female, you probably have copped it. I think we all have. And I don't think it's, that intentional, mean behaviour. It's just, unfortunately, some of the behaviours we've been exposed to. So you need to have grit. You need to get up, when someone does say something to you, and you need to move on. But you need to have grace. We are women. We are different. Embrace that as well. If someone opens the door for you, just say thank you. And it's just been mindful that you bring yourself to work. You shouldn't have to try to be something that you're not, because just as Carmen said, you'll be recognised for your own merits, your own talents, and I think that is what will make you successful.
Brilliant. Love that. Grit and grace. I think, yeah, I can speak for everyone around here. We don't want to be, we all want to be promoted by merit, but the fact is we will often be different, and other people will see us as different, even if we don't feel it ourselves. So thank you. Those are all really great tips. I think to round off the discussion, we've talked a lot about different aspects, technical hours, mentorship, getting advocates, having those ambitions, building those foundations. I'd just like to ask each of you to close off with this final question. What's the next big thing or focus to ensure that we keep developing and supporting women in technical roles? Lydia, I might throw to you for this one again.
I think we're in such a fantastic time where, you know, technology is changing. I think we need to really focus more on some of those technical skills and have that grounding in it. Because I think to be a really good leader, you need to have that technical background. So it's understanding every day is a school day. No matter where you are in your career, learn a new skill that will help you down the track.
Great. Jedi, what do you think is what's the next big thing or focus that we need to be developing?
I think that there's kind of a rapid evolution in kind of energy efficiency, climate change, water stewardship, and being technical people, we tend to be an interface with that. But as an industry, we tend to be probably behind in other areas in this. So it's about how do you keep up and continue that learning. Things are evolving, and one of the challenges for me is keeping up with the knowledge. It's exciting, it creates opportunities, but it's also a challenge.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And Carmen.
Okay, so I think that there are two things I'd like to talk about. The first is that we've been spending a number of years now just leaving the ladder in place for others to climb up. And I think we've got to take the next step now, and that is let those that climb up branch out from us and equal us and even pass us by if that's a possibility. And I think that more of that is going to amplify the impact of that pipeline that we talked about a couple of questions back. We just need more mass weight. It just needs to become the normal. That's the answer. And the other thing that I'd like to talk about is something that's a little bit behavioural. And it's something that's only come to me in recent times because I've been far too excitable up until now. But I want to talk about being calm, being centred, being deliberate, and not being triggered. I think we all have to realise that sometimes things will go well, sometimes they will not go well. And the key to success in any of those situations, whether it's about a job you hope for, whether it's about the work program that you're working on and things don't go right or go well, or they do go super well, being calm, being deliberate and breathing and focusing your team, being analytic and strategic is only going to leave the Jersey in a better place. And I promised earlier to talk about leaving the Jersey in a better place. And what that means is that when you move on from something or when you go to the next step, you were already in a much better place than you were previously. This is one of the key attributes of one of the highest performing teams in the world. And that high performing team recognised internationally as the best high performance team is the All Blacks rugby team. They have a special definition for high performance. And I think one of the magic things that females bring to leadership in technical roles and leadership full stop is a culture of high performance. And don't think that I'm talking about we are the best or we are better than. We're talking about a careful understanding of what high performance looks like, what it feels like to live it and breathe it, and how you get your team to be a high-functioning and high-performing team without having the Einsteins in every position in the team. The All Blacks do not have the best rugby players in the world or in New Zealand in their team. They have the players that have the most character. They have the players with the best motivation. They have the players who leave the jersey in a better place after each game. Maybe you could all buy a book called Legacy and have a read of it. It's a really easy read, and it's just an absolutely phenomenal piece for a leader to take forward for their teams. Thank you.
Thank you. Legacy, I'll add that to my list. Look, we're going to have to wrap up there. We've run out of time for this session. I'm sure we could have kept talking for hours. This is such a rich topic, and you all have such interesting insights about how to deal with teams, how to deal with other leaders, how to keep growing and developing your own expertise. But unfortunately, we'll have to close it off there. I'm going to hand back to Sally, our YMARC co-chair, to just wrap things up with some final messages. So over to you, Sally.
Thank you, although we are at time. I appreciate a lot of people have meetings like I do. But look, just really quickly, really thank Carmen, Lydia and Jedi. There's a couple of key things that I got out of this session. One of them was the leading with love, inspiring and building confidence. Your team, your superpower. Love that, Carmen. And then with Lydia, when you said that you challenged absolutely everything, I was like, wow, that's phenomenal. Well done. And when you talked about the safety, the cost, and about leadership being the influence and the connection and needing the courage, I thought that was really powerful. And then Jedi, when you talked about the curiosity and continuing to seek new information, then that came out actually in the back end when we talked about what's the next phase, what's the next big challenge, is always being curious and also making sure that we create that secure environment and safe environment for our team and taking risks. So that was excellent. We covered lots of things: mentoring, inclusive environment, the next big thing, technical leadership. But for me, I got some great points out of that. Hopefully everyone listening did as well. And just a really quick plug for our upcoming events. So we've got 2 coming up. We've got Jo Best, who's our 2020 International Women's Day Exceptional Woman in Queensland. She will be talking about why it took a pandemic for flexible work to get real fast, and will it stick? That's on the 18th of August. And then we've got Maureen Inglis, which is on the 3rd of September. And she will be talking about the opportunity to broaden perspectives and add strategies to communication toolbox, things like increasing self-awareness and expanding awareness of others. So I'm sorry we're rushing, but we are over time. Thank you so much for our panelists and to Holstein and for everyone for taking part in this virtual event. Take care.
Just before you go, cameras on, because I would love to screenshot this process.
We can't hear you, Caroline.
Hang on.
I think Caroline was asking everybody to turn their cameras on for a quick group photo, a virtual group photo.
Yes, sorry about that. I was using the wrong computer. If you're comfortable, please turn your camera on so we can get a group shot. One more, at least. One more person. Could I have one more person put their camera on, please? And then we'll have a complete set. That will have to do. Thanks very much, everybody. And thank you to our panelists. Back to you, Sally.
That's it. Goodbye. Take care.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, Lydia and Jedi. Bye now.